Hello students. So in this video, we are going to talk about what should be your approach for the legal reasoning section in the upcoming CLAT 2024 paper that is going to be conducted on 3rd of December 2023. Now, let's get into understanding what should be your overall approach. That means let's understand what does it take to give a good legal reasoning attempt, right? Now here we have three aspects. First, obviously, there is passage. You have to understand the passage. Second, you have to attempt the question. That means you have to understand the question. And the third being marking an answer as to choosing a correct answer, right? Now, these are the three verticals based on which you attempt a particular passage, as in with questions, right? Now, in this particular video, we are going to talk about the first aspect. The upcoming aspect, that means the other two aspects will be covered in the upcoming videos. That is, how do you attempt a question or how do you read a question, analyze its difficulty, draw an answer, and the last one is how do you mark an answer. As in when you get confused between two correct options, how do you mark the answer? I usually say this, that for legal reasoning, definitely, rarely you will see that the options will be wrong. There is no wrong options. There are always correct options only. But you have to choose the option which is closest to what has been asked in the question. That means individually each of the statement are true. But the statement which is true at the same time answers the question particularly, directly, right? That is going to be the correct option. So you have to be very careful as to, with regards to this particular aspect which is marking an answer. Right? Now, these two will be covered in upcoming videos. So, in this video, we are going to discuss what is understanding the passage. Now, when I talk about understanding the passage, these are some of the aspects. Let's do one by one and try to understand what are these things. First thing is understand the theme of the passage. What is theme of the passage? Is it a civil law or contractual law related matter? Is it a criminal law related matter? Environmental matter? What is it? Is it a commercial dispute? Now what happens is theme per se will not give you any answers, but it will make you or it will prepare you for what is going to come in the next few lines. That means when I decide that it's a family law related or a domestic relation related passage, right? All these family laws, I know that who are the major stakeholders. And in a family, if there is a family law related dispute which goes to court, who are the people who are going to get affected? Your landlord? No. Your neighbor? No. Husband, wife mostly, children, then grandparents to some extent, maternal uncle, ya fir all other parties, they may also get affected. So you know that not everyone is equally getting affected. So you understand the stakeholders. Now, the law which is applicable to everybody, you are confining that applicability to few people. Like similarly, when we talk about contracts, we know that what is privity of contract and how in a contract only those people who are party to the contract can file a suit or go or enforce that contract, right? Similarly, you understand who are the stakeholders. When I talk about company, we know the stakeholders are board of directors, shareholders. Similarly, we understand where is the problem existing. What is that sphere? Now, you enter the sphere when you understand the theme of the passage. So, understand the theme of the passage. Second is understanding the underlying problem. Now, you understood the problem exists with these people. Family law, the problem exists with husband, wife and their children. Now, what is the underlying problem? Is it the custody of child? Is it maintenance? What is the underlying problem within that sphere? That is something which is going to give you a hint to lot of the answers. The second point is understanding the underlying problems. People, right, who were there or people that we have decided through this theme of the passage, what is the problem with them and how the law is addressing it. That is the second point, which is understanding the underlying problem, right? Now, the third point is understanding the applicability, which is calculating provisions at the same time excluding, which is known as exclusions or exceptions, right? That means every law is not equally applicable to everybody, right? Now, in this particular point, you're going to analyze whether the given law, which is the law which is given in the passage, does that cover everyone? Now, this particular thing is kind of a plus minus thing, right? Now, you all know what is plus minus. You know what is addition, you know what is all these things, mathematical operation basics. So it says that what are the provision? Provisions say that 10 people are covered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exception is saying in these circumstances, few people will be excluded. Are you excluding? That is the exception. So provision provides, exceptions exclude. So this plus is provision, exception in minus. This can be direct, at the same time it can be indirect in form of say cut-off date. That this law is applicable to people who have registered themselves before this date, not applicable to people who have registered after that date. So this provision and exception, which is plus and minus, whether you come under this particular act, whether you're covered under this particular act, or you don't come under the purview of this act. This is something on which majority of the questions will be. 30% of the questions will be on applicability, right? So that is one very important aspect. Other than that, mark the stance and reasoning of law of the author with apt demarcation. What is this particular thing? So whenever you read a passage, there are multiple observations. Say you're reading a Supreme Court judgment. Let's talk about a recent Supreme Court judgment, right? So recently we saw the judgment in the month of October. Just very recently we saw that Supreme Court denied giving recognition to same-sex marriage, right? Now the passage may cover the views of the author. The author is saying that Say that the author is saying in that particular passage that recently Supreme Court have delivered this judgment, which is not a good judgment, because given that right to self-determination is already a fundamental right, how come you can deny marital rights to all these people? All these can be some of the argument that the author is giving. Now author is disagreeing with what Supreme Court has said. Now within that passage there will be certain double quotation parts wherein they are talking about what did Supreme Court say. Now this is what I say, marking the stance. That means what does author say? Is he agreeing, disagreeing, neutral stand, criticizing, analytics? What is it that the path he has taken? And the second one is all these things. For example, Supreme Court judgment, author, Supreme Court judgment. Within Supreme Court judgment, one person is giving a dissenting judgment, another is concurring. Now all these things, who is accepting, who is not accepting, to what extent not. All these things are marking of stance and then demarcating. This is very important. Who are the people who are supporting this particular thing? Who are the people who are having a neutral stand? Who are the people who are straight away criticizing it, or they're not respecting it? All those things come in this particular thing. Marking stance is again a portion where almost like 20% of the questions come. Now this is not a strict number. This is the analysis that I have done of previous few year question paper, and I realized that 30% though it's about applicability, 20%, so 25% questions are about marking of stance, right? And the last one is finding the conflict in reasoning. You found the reasoning here, right? In the second last point that we have just covered now, I told you that mark the reasoning of author. Why is supporting, not supporting, right? What are their stand? What are the stand of this person? What is the stand of that person? That is a reasoning. There would be definitely some reasoning based on which they're taking the stand. Now that stance, that particular person has taken a stand. Now all those stand have some kind of reasoning. Remember, whenever there is a conflict of reasoning, right? Whenever there is a conflict of reasoning, there is always a scope of question, and most of the questions, almost like majority of the questions, come from this as well. Right? Now what does this mean? Conflict of reasoning. The author is disagreeing to something that other person is agreeing. There is a conflict of interest. There is a conflict of idea supported by their own arguments. There can be conflict of arguments with the result, being in concurrence. That can also happen. But you have to mark whether there exists a reasoning argument which is conflicting. Whenever there is a conflict, there is a scope of question. So these are the multiple aspects that you have to understand in a passage. When you cover the passage, you go to the question. Now, before I end this video, because we are going to talk about other two aspects, which is how do you read the question and the options, and last one, how do you eliminate and all those things, and how do you mark the answer. So those two will be covered in the next two videos. But before I end this video, I want to tell you that, see, although you are attempting question, most of the people feel that entire source of information is the passage. That means passage is given, right? So I will read passage. This will give me the scope of knowledge. Everything is, all the knowledge which is required to answer the question are given in this passage, and then I am going to, answer the question. But this is a very wrong approach. I usually say that not only passage, but sometimes question also contains some of the hint to to answer some other question. So question 1 had a question and options, right? Now you marked the answer. So you must have eliminated one answer that you felt like it's very vague. But this particular option may have some hidden knowledge which will be helpful in answering, say, some other question. Whenever there is something given in this paper, no matter whether it's in the form of passage, whether it's in the form of question, options, everything is a source of knowledge. Read it carefully, understand everything. This is something that we are going to cover in next 2 topics as well, right? With that, we come to the end. I hope that this particular portion of understanding passage was useful to you. Nevertheless, you're free to drop the comment and ask me anything with regards to any specific problem that you have. Right? With that, we come to the end. I hope that this was a useful video for you and you enjoyed watching it. Thank you so much.